Prisons are scary enough, but are they without weird things and rules? Absolutely not. And yes, today I am here with an eye-opening video for you. I'll be getting into the details about some of the most unbelievable and bizarre stories from prisons around the world.
The officer's taken me to the cell block. Got all these prisoners, and shouting falang, falang.
From dramatic escapes and unique inmate programs to pink undies and extreme conditions, these tales are almost too crazy to believe. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to explore the incredible world behind bars. Let's get started. Number 1, friends escape. What you're watching here is likely the result of years of planning. Yep, it's a real-life prison break. In the dark of night, these 4 inmates were caught on camera making their escape from the jail. It's pretty mind-blowing that they managed to pull this off, especially given the tight security you'd expect in a place like that. Not so surprisingly, all 4 of them were caught just a month after this escape. Imagine doing all of that just to end up in much more security just a month later. That was crazy, but what you're about to see next is going to make you go crazy. Number 2, pink underpants. Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County, Arizona, is known for finding new ways to punish the inmates, and this one was no different. As it turns out, he made all the male inmates wear pink uniforms. Arpaio said this was to prevent theft and help keep inmates calm. But how on earth does pink color stop anyone from behaving irrationally? I doubt that anyone would turn into a real Hello Kitty after that. Many people believe that he simply did that to embarrass the inmates. In addition to the pink underwear, Arpaio had other strict measures. For instance, he served green bologna and only allowed inmates to eat twice a day without any salt or pepper. Number 3, hunger strike. Well, if pink underwear and pink uniform weren't enough, under the tenure of Sheriff Paul Pinzone of Maricopa County, a significant change was made to the meal policies in his jails. Apparently, the food being served in jails was gross and tasteless. The food was so bad that the inmates even started a hunger strike because they simply couldn't eat it. One of them even said that they wouldn't even feed that food to a dog. Some said that they were forced to eat the same thing thrice a day every single day. I mean, no normal human would want to do that, but the sheriff had something else to say. In a press conference, he stated that for the inmates on hunger strike, he had only one advice, and that was to not commit crimes and go to jail. And if you ask me, he wasn't really wrong about it. Number 4, solitary confinement. Solitary confinement in any jail is just the worst way of torturing inmates. And trust me, you don't want to be inside one of those cells. In supermax prisons, solitary confinement is a standard practice, where inmates spend 23 hours a day in their cells with very limited activities and interactions. These cells are heavily guarded, and the inmates have minimal opportunities for recreation or social engagement. When they are allowed out of their cells, it is typically for only 1 hour, and often in a small, secure outdoor area with little to do but walk around. This extreme isolation is intended for high-profile federal inmates, such as drug kingpins, terrorists, and serial killers, or those who have committed serious offenses while already incarcerated. Many inmates who have experienced solitary confinement say that once they were inside that cell, pain just simply started building up in them. They were angry about everything and, not so surprisingly, going crazy. I know most of you might think that because you're an introvert, you could survive in one of those cells, but I kid you not. It's not for the faint of heart. These cells mostly don't even have a proper bed, and the walls are blank, and sometimes there's little to no light. I wouldn't even want to spend a minute in such a place. Number 5, mandatory dance routines. Now, solitary confinement is scary, but what about mandatory dance routines? That's something no one would ever expect in a max security prison. At the Cebu Provincial Detention and Rehabilitation Center in the Philippines, inmates participate in mandatory choreographed dance routines. This unique practice, initiated by the progressive warden Byron Garcia, serves as an unconventional form of exercise and recreation. Large groups of inmates perform these dance routines to popular songs, and the activity has gained widespread attention through viral videos. Despite the mandatory nature of the participation, the footage often shows inmates appearing to enjoy the activity, suggesting that it may have a positive impact on their morale and sense of community within the prison. The dance routines provide a structured way for inmates to engage in physical activity and potentially alleviate some of the stresses associated with incarceration. And who doesn't like to shake a leg every once in a while, even if it's in jail? Number 6. Kids in prison. In Aranjuez prison in Spain, low-risk inmates with young children have the unique opportunity to live in family cells. These well-furnished cells allow inmates to stay with their children, providing a more normal family environment within the prison setting. This arrangement aims to help inmates develop parenting skills and maintain strong family bonds, which can be crucial for their rehabilitation and reintegration into society. The policy is based on the belief that inmates who have a positive relationship with their children are less likely to reoffend. This special living arrangement continues until the child turns 3, at which point they typically leave to avoid becoming more aware of the prison environment. Mind you, not all prisoners get to live in these family cells. According to the rules, sex offenders never get to live like that, while others with charges that are less intense often end up living with their kids until they are 3 years old. The family cells offer a supportive atmosphere that benefits both the inmates and their children, fostering a sense of stability and hope for the future. But I wonder if it's really okay for kids to be raised in jail? Number 7. Gourmet chef work. At Fortezza Medicea in Italy, high-security inmates actually run a whole restaurant. Surprising, right? Well, as it turns out in this prison, the inmates get to work as gourmet chefs in an attached high-end restaurant. This prison, which houses inmates serving long sentences of at least 7 years, offers a work-study program that allows prisoners to learn and practice culinary skills. Despite being a high-security facility, the restaurant has gained a reputation as one of the best in Italy. Diners must undergo security and background checks before visiting, ensuring safety while allowing inmates to showcase their culinary talents. What a great way to teach them new skills and also allowing them to grow and become better as a person. Number 8. Boxing matches. At Cerrizo Chetumal Prison in Mexico, a unique approach to conflict resolution involves inmates settling disputes in a boxing ring. When prisoners have disagreements, they are given gloves and instructed on the rules of boxing, allowing them to safely vent their frustrations through organized matches. This method has contributed to the prison's reputation as one of the safest in Mexico, with no incidents of non-consensual violence for at least 10 years. So, by providing a controlled and supervised environment for physical confrontations, the boxing program helps maintain peace and order within the prison. This innovative approach not only reduces violence, but also promotes discipline and sportsmanship among inmates. Number 9. Shackles for death row inmates. At Bang Kwang Prison in northern Bangkok, Thailand, death row inmates are subjected to extremely harsh conditions, including wearing shackles continuously. From the moment they arrive, these inmates are bound by heavy chains, a practice that continues around the clock to prevent any attempts at escape. This brutal policy reflects the prison's tough stance on crime, particularly for those convicted of the most serious offenses. The harsh conditions are not limited to death row inmates. All inmates at Bang Kwang face severe restrictions and a rigid, punitive environment. For the first 3 months of their incarceration, inmates wear shackles at all times, significantly impacting their daily lives and mobility. Being bound in shackles, even inside a prison, is just double torture. While some prisoners might actually deserve it, I wonder if everyone really has to go through that 3-month phase. Number 10. Inmate-run prison. Now, all high-security prisons aren't really controlled by security. Some are actually just guarded by them, while the prisoners run the whole setup inside the jail themselves. San Pedro Prison in La Paz, Bolivia, is one such prison, and it operates in a highly unconventional manner where the inmates essentially run the facility with minimal guard intervention. The prison resembles a small, self-sustained community with a variety of facilities, including a market, hospital, churches, and even a hotel for visitors. Inmates are responsible for paying for their cells and living conditions, often working within the prison to earn money. They sell goods, including food and handmade items, and some inmates continue running businesses that they started outside the prison. Now, mind you, it's not an ideal setup, because the inmates clearly have a say in everything here. Drugs and bribery are common here. But that's not even the worst part. It's reported that whole families are living inside this prison, and yes, there are kids there as well. And that's what makes it super hard to believe that such a prison actually exists. Number 11. Narrow escape. This wild incident occurred at a high-security jail in Cleveland, Ohio. A drone was used to help an inmate out. But the problem is, the inmate forgot that there are cameras everywhere in a jail like that. It happened when inmates were out in the exercise yard when suddenly one of them could be seen trying to catch something. However, he missed it in the first go. The object hits the ground, and without missing a beat, the inmate grabs it, hides it in his shirt, and casually walks away like it's no big deal. Turns out the mysterious package was a satchel containing marijuana and a cell phone. Jail officials figured this out later, and, as you'd expect, additional charges are now on the table for the inmate involved. What's crazy is that they haven't been able to track down who was flying the drone. Number 12. Movie scene. You are on the safer side of the internet if you haven't seen this video. It looks like something straight out of a horror movie, absolutely chaotic and violent. In the given CCTV footage, you can see a prisoner who's clearly frantic and aggressive, wielding a knife and attacking others. It's really intense, with people around him scrambling to get out of the way of his wild swings. The big question on everyone's mind is, how on earth did he get that knife? I mean, this is supposed to be a secure facility, right? The fact that such a dangerous weapon made its way inside raises some serious red flags about the safety protocols in place. It really makes you wonder about how effective their monitoring systems are and whether the searches they conduct are thorough enough. Another interesting thing that you will notice is how there are groups of inmates. One group is of the attackers, and the other is of those who were attacked. The guy who was stabbed didn't run away. Instead, he came back to save his buddy. Well, that just goes to show that friendship sees no boundaries. Number 13. Cook County chaos. This video is from the Cook County Jail in Illinois, and it's definitely not something you see every day. 3 inmates viciously attacked 2 correctional deputies, and the whole thing was caught on surveillance cameras. This went down around 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday in the Supermax division of the jail. The footage is intense. It starts with one of the guards getting into a heated argument with an inmate. Then, out of nowhere, other detainees rush over, and suddenly, it's a brutal group assault with punches flying everywhere. It's seriously alarming to watch. Soon after, a bunch of security officers can be seen running inside to save their pals. But by the time those 2 officers managed to get out of there, they had already sustained severe injuries. The assaulters were asked to be charged with attempted murder later on. Number 14. No books. The U.S. prison system is known for banning books in correctional facilities, and there are no consistent guidelines about which reading materials are allowed. This means that almost any book can be questioned. For example, Florida has banned over 22,000 specific books. Even if a book isn't on the banned list, it might still not reach an inmate for other reasons, such as the book's size or the color of its packaging. One of the most unusual restrictions is New York's Secure Vendor Program, which started in 2018. This policy stated that inmates could only receive items from certain approved vendors. However, as author Molly Crabapple noted on X, the selection of these vendors was very limited. According to Crabapple, the options included a few sex novels, religious books, drawing and coloring books, puzzle books, some guitar and chess how-to guides, 1 dictionary, and 1 thesaurus. No other books could be sent in. Additionally, the prices from these approved vendors were much higher than normal. Number 15. Intake ceremony. Life in a Russian prison is far from easy, and stories from people like Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny and WNBA star Brittany Griner, who was detained in 2022, paint a sad and scary picture. Even in the better facilities, conditions are harsh, and in the more scary penal colonies, life can be downright brutal. The initial initiation process can be especially horrific. In Yaroslavl prison near Moscow, violence and deaths among prisoners are common, and new arrivals quickly learn what kind of place they've entered. The so-called intake ceremony is a form of violent hazing designed to break in new inmates. It happens in a narrow, low hallway that leads to a cramped room. New prisoners are forced into this room where they are beaten severely while heavy metal music blares in the background. This brutal treatment serves to establish control and dominance by the guards. While there are some regulations in place, if a guard kills a prisoner during this process, they might face an investigation. This does little to mitigate the terror of the intake process. It's a terrifying initiation that most prisoners would undoubtedly prefer to avoid. Number 16. Female gowns. Solitary confinement is rough. It messes with your body and mind in some pretty intense ways. The lack of exercise and activity can cause pain, trembling, and heart problems. Mentally, it can be even worse, sometimes leading to depression and even suicide. In Texas, things were made even stranger for female inmates in solitary confinement. Instead of the usual prison uniforms, they were given white gowns. This wasn't just a one-time thing. They got gowns while male inmates got full uniforms. To make matters worse, these women only received gowns, underwear, and socks. If they wanted anything else, like pants or shower towels, they had to pay for them. If they couldn't afford it, they were out of luck. Experts were baffled by this policy. University of Colorado criminology professor Vivian Aranda Hughes told Texas Public Radio, "To my knowledge, this is the only state that I have heard of this. This is the first time I'd ever heard of this. It seemed like the gowns were a way to humiliate the inmates deliberately. Thankfully, this bizarre policy finally ended in 2023. Number 17. No air conditioning. Sometimes the strangest rule is not having one at all. This is painfully clear during the hot months when many U.S. prisoners suffer because their prisons don't have air conditioning. Despite court rulings that inmates shouldn't be exposed to extreme heat or cold, many U.S. prisons still lack air conditioners. In 2019, 13 southern states had no air conditioning in their prisons, and by 2023, it's estimated that up to 44 states had at least some prisons without AC. Enduring a hot summer without air conditioning is brutal, especially in prison, where inmates can't escape the heat. People pass out, flood their cells in desperation, and even die from heat stroke. The extreme temperatures can also cause serious medical issues, affecting internal organs. This problem doesn't just affect inmates. Prison staff also suffer from the extreme heat. They face challenging working conditions and are understandably wary of the risks. Texas State Representative Terry Canales highlighted the issue, saying, "The truth is, the state is paying millions of dollars a year in heat-related lawsuits, and we're facing chronic corrections officer shortages. Being in prison in and of itself is a punishment, but nobody is signed up to be tortured." Number 18. Dig your own grave. North Korea is one of the most secretive countries in the world, making it hard to know exactly what happens inside its prison camps. However, international intelligence, escapee testimonies, and satellite imagery help paint a grim picture of the conditions there. A recent report from the U.S. State Department suggested that between 80,000 and 120,000 prisoners are held in these camps. In 2014, a former prison guard at Kwanliso 16, North Korea's largest political prison camp, shared chilling details with Amnesty International. He revealed that female prisoners were raped by visiting officials and then disappeared. Before these visits, the women were forced to dig their own graves. The women had to die because the secret could not get out. This happens at most of the political prison camps, the former guard said. This testimony highlights the extreme brutality and secrecy that shrouds North Korea's prison camps, revealing a horrifying reality for those imprisoned there. Number 19. Blindfolded. Have you noticed how often Uyghur-related videos are popping up online? It's really disturbing. Each one seems to be more horrifying than the last. Take the video you're looking at now, for instance. There are tons of prisoners, all blindfolded and shackled. It's heartbreaking and alarming to see so many people in such a state. The video is powerful and leaves a lasting impact, making you wonder about the stories and suffering behind each individual. Mind you, these people aren't actually criminals, but instead, they are the Muslim population of Uyghur forced into concentration camps and high-security prisons like this one in China. At first, the video was deemed fake. However, it was later confirmed that it was very real, and the inmates were being transferred from one place to another via train, while their heads were shaved, and they were sitting there blindfolded. It was also confirmed that legal ways are being used to carry out a cultural crackdown on these people. The question is, have no human rights associations taken a stance against it so far? Number 20. Stabbed. You have heard about stabbings in prison, but have you ever seen it in real life? You can see in this video, an inmate, Alan Jerome Capers, is struggling alone after being stabbed at Turbeville Correctional Institution on New Year's Eve, 2017. The footage shows him trying to cope without any assistance following the attack on him. That's it for today's deep dig into the unbelievable stories from some of the world's most crazy prisons. If you were as shocked as I was, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest content. Do you have any thoughts or stories to share? Drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.